Hey everyone, and welcome to the GRC Room for the biggest cybersecurity failures aren't technical. I'm Mike Andrews here once again with Karina Klever of Clever Compliance, and we're happy to welcome Ross Brouse, who's the CISO and founder of Continuous Networks LLC. Please feel free to leave comments, and we'll get to them as soon as possible. If it's not while we're live, it'll be shortly after. Also, if you haven't already, please check out the GRC Room YouTube channel and consider subscribing. On there, you'll be able to find this webinar, all our other ones, clips, and more. So, looks like we're ready to go. Let me pass it to Karina for a brief intro, then we'll learn more about Ross.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mike. Ross, thank you so much for being with us. I'm Karina of Clever Compliance. We do compliance management as a service. It's what we're kind of known for, and we're very heavy on vendor assessments these days and kind of gauging risk there. So, Ross, I'm going to ask you your first question. So, Continuous Networks is known for working with healthcare companies. Why healthcare?
Yeah, good question. I actually get asked that question quite a bit lately. What really attracted to me to healthcare just was my own personal experience in dealing with my medical providers and seeing some of the ways that they cavalierly treated my data. I remember when I realized you didn't actually have to hand over your social security number and never should hand your social security number over to a healthcare provider. And I'm like, why are these guys even asking for this? Like, they're just opening themselves to all kinds of liability by doing it. But the fact of the matter is, healthcare is really focused on three core habits as I see it. There's the service aspect of it. We take care of our patients. There's the urgency. It's health. We've got people's lives at stake. And then there's trust. I trust people. I trust doctors. I trust their opinion. I trust whatever they're telling me. And so those things are great when it comes to healthcare, but they're absolutely terrible when it comes to cybersecurity and technology. And so it really, what attracted to me to healthcare was taking that thing that I knew was so important to that industry and turning it upside down and going, this is actually hurting you in ways that you don't understand. So teaching them about things like IT process, teaching them about things like cyber awareness, teaching them about things like verify, trust but verify. And so listen, you guys, you have a lot of trust that you've built up with us because we believe what you're telling us, but you got to verify things. You got to verify things, and that really applies to cybersecurity. So that, my own personal experience and just what I had learned about healthcare really attracted me to it. And I said, these guys are starving. Like, this is a starving market. They need this help.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of interject for a second, say, I pulled just late last week, the HHS OCR breach report, which I actually do pretty frequently for our clients, because we're either doing vendor assessments against healthcare providers who may be on that list, so we want to check for that. But it was pretty appalling. For the first time, I saw that there were 350 million individuals whose personal health information had been lost or breached or somehow impacted and reported to the HHS, which is more than every single person in this entire country.
Yeah.
And I mean, usually it's been running at an 80-83%. I mean, Change Healthcare bumped it up there, but boy, now we're at more than 100% of the entire population is now involved in some sort of a breach of their PHI. And it's just baffling to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. And people are desensitized from it because they hear it all the time.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what doesn't desensitize you. It's when you actually get that letter from OCR and they say, here are the 24 things that we're going to give you 3 weeks to provide to us. Oh my God, we never created any of this stuff. Like, we can't defend any of these things or a good chunk of them. And boy, is that a wake up call.
Yeah.
Yeah, in healthcare, it's definitely hard for them to intuitively handle these things, right? Because you might have like one doctor and then their staff is one or two people, and their schedule is usually packed anyway, right? Like, especially here in Las Vegas, it is like impossible to get a primary care provider. They'll tell you 2-3 months, so they don't have to worry as much initially about trust as other businesses. So they may not handle cybersecurity, then it comes back to bite them. Yeah. But Ross, we have next question for you. What's the biggest mistake you see healthcare leaders make when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yeah. It's not just healthcare, but yeah, this is big in healthcare. It's abdication of ownership. They abdicate the ownership over the technology that they're using to provide patient care. and they just expect it to work like we expect our iPhone to set off our alarms every morning and wake us up, or connect to our CarPlay in our car, or you're an Android user, the same sort of thing. Like, we just expect stuff to work, like the TV comes on or the internet's always connected. So we take it for granted. They take it for granted. And so because they do that, they say, I'll hire an MSP, or I've got an IT guy, and I'm just going to abdicate that ownership to them because I don't have time to deal with that. What I'm doing is too important here. And listen, I say this with all the love in the world, but I love to joke about it because it's kind of funny. And the joke goes, what's the difference between gods and doctors?
I think I heard this one before, but
yeah, the difference is that gods don't claim to be doctors.
Yeah, that is a good one.
And so, and you get it, right? This has been something that's been going on for decades now in the healthcare community, and we trust doctors because it's our health and it's important. But I don't have time for this. I've got patients to see. I don't have time for this. I'm dealing with so many other things related to healthcare. I mean, some of these people are crazy. They're cardiologists. They're neurosurgeons. They're doing active brain surgery. They don't have time to sit there and worry about technology or security as they talk about it. But listen, patient care doesn't stop with physical health. It's also about taking care of your patient's data and respecting that they're trusting you. And that's a responsibility that you have.
Yeah, Ross. So you mentioned that they may not have time to handle cybersecurity, but you know how it is. Business leaders find time when they think something is important enough. So why do so many leaders still treat cybersecurity like an IT problem in general? Like, what's the root cause?
Yeah. I think the biggest reason is they don't understand it. It's confusing. And we've done a terrible job in the IT community over the last 40 years of explaining that to them. And so, sit down with an astrophysicist and have them go off their recent research work or whatever it is they're doing and see if you can keep up with it. You'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I don't understand a word you're saying. And in technology, like, we're dropping acronyms all over the place. We're using terms that are just flying over their head. And so if we want people to stop listening to us, then we keep communicating that way. And unfortunately, that's the default communication method in this industry. And until we start talking like human beings, until we start, using relatable analogies in how we communicate these things, nobody's going to listen to us. That has to change. And I think as we start to change that, we've got a huge responsibility. As we start to change that, we're going to see them start to change as well.
And it's kind of hard to talk about the language, right? That it kind of depends on who you're talking with. I was talking to somebody high up in the legal field very recently about readiness for an ISO cert. And they said to me, well, we don't have certain types of data, so why do we need to have all of these controls? And I go, well, that's like walking into, you need a car, the car dealership, and saying, well, I want to only pay half price for this car because I'm not going to drive that many miles.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just, it doesn't fly. So there are some requirements that we can't really bypass from the GRC perspective, but they're also there to kind of verify that the security things are in place. And the IT world is very full of just such incredibly bright, smart people who really love to talk about all of the cool things that they do. Right. And that usually involves a whole bunch of really big words and abstract kind of abstract logic that they're not always able to really talk about correctly with the people who are listening to them or trying to listen to them. And this kind of, it's created these silos, and it's created these ostrich sort of executives sticking their heads in the sand and going, why, I mean, I pay you enough. Why don't you just go ahead and take care of that? You don't have to give me the details because it's just overwhelming and confusing. But because of that, they can't make the decisions that they need to on what the posture and the security posture and the priorities ought to be for the company. So it's this unfortunate double-edged sword.
Yep. 100%. Yep. Totally agree.
I mean, I can see where the thought process comes from. If you have an MSP, you're paying them for IT, you might say, do it securely. Like if you hire a roofer for your house, they're not going to say to you, okay, well, now you need to hire us. someone extra to hold the ladders for us, you know.
Right.
So it's just part of
Right.
it, but it is different in cybersecurity. And a lot of this comes down to accountability and responsibility, which are words that often kind of get confused, thrown around. Karina, what's the difference between cybersecurity accountability and responsibility in practice?
Well, there's, there's your classic RACI model, right? Some people need to be informed, some people need to be consulted. You may have a more senior person who's actually accountable for the actions or initiatives or projects or activities that are going on in a department. Then there are people who are actually do the functions that are required of them. And the people who are sitting there, fingers on keyboard, right? This is where, I used to be a PMO director. So this is, hats off to the project managers who try to have that cryptic language with the person who's actually doing the work. Hey, when is this going to get done? And, 4 hours. Well, in 4 hours was 3 weeks ago. So where are you now? Right. So there's actually, so something like IAM, right? So, or IGA or PAM, whatever you want to call it. Right. So role-based access control is born in HR, right? And most people don't really actually consider that. They're like, well, IT grants us access. Well, sure, they grant you access, but it's based on what your title is and what your role is and what your least privilege permissions ought to be and your segregation of duties requirements. And so that marriage between what is your title and what should you have access to is a business decision that needs to be very meticulously mapped out, matrixed out, where your systems are identified, your level of permissions are identified, and then those levels of permissions assigned to particular roles, which will trigger particular tasks that have particular duties in them for execution. And so when people are like, well, I brought in Paul and we should mimic Paul's access like Susie's access, that you shouldn't be doing that ever. It needs to be role-based access control. And that is really the difference between accountability and responsibility. So someone's responsible for executing on that access request, but somebody's accountable for deciding on what kind of level of permissions should that title have.
Ross, you speak about this often and probably better than just about anyone. How do you think about this and talk about this with clients?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar to Karina. Responsibility is who does the work, and accountability is who answers for the outcome. That's really the way to look at it from my perspective. And I think the test that really settles that question is, if this thing fails, this thing that we're doing fails, whose name's going to be on that finding? That's the person that's accountable. And so we're expecting these IT directors, we're expecting these MSPs to be accountable because we don't want to deal with it, but it's not their name on the cyber liability application. It's not that they're not going to receive the letter from the Office for Civil Rights. We're just expecting them to bail us out. And they're implicitly accepting that ownership because they want to keep their job or they want to get the deal or whatever the situation is, but they don't know enough to say, hold on a second, this is your business. You run the show. These are business decisions, not technology decisions. So, MSPs get asked all the time, hey, complete this questionnaire for my cyber liability company. Okay, but understand it's your name that's going on it.
Exactly.
It's not mine. It's
Exactly.
yours. And if you don't know what I'm answering, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So Ross, to kind of just move further into this question, what does it really mean to own something? Does that mean you can get fired, arrested, or what?
What's the impact?
It depends.
Yeah, all depends. It all depends. The part that I talk about a lot is after the fact. Let's say there's a breach that takes place. The question that always gets asked is, how did we let this happen? And the answer to that almost always is, we didn't. You did. You did because you own it. You just didn't realize you did. Now, maybe I wasn't responsible enough to tell you that. I didn't know how to tell you that. But at the end of the day, this is your company. You're the CEO. You own the show, man. It's all you. Everything stops with you. And my feeling is, if good leader takes ownership for all the failures and takes credit for none of the wins.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Having a military background, it's a very similar thought process.
Yep.
So Ross, what's the actual biggest disconnect between executives and security teams that you see?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, I think it's what I was talking about before. It's that risk is really getting accepted implicitly. So there's no active decision that's really being made to determine how risk is getting owned. So security team will present a finding. So they believe they've given you some sort of a decision, and you accept that as an executive. You go, okay, and then you're listening to that status update. You're going, okay, but nobody's saying we accept this, and nobody's signing off on it, and so it just sits there as this risk. And then something happens, right? There's a breach or something like that. The security team goes, we told you this like 3 months ago. And the executive goes, you told me a lot of things 3 months ago. And so that's not a communication problem. It's a decision problem. It's always, always, always a decision problem. And this is where the disconnect exists.
Yeah, and I think that's where that kind of GRC or that compliance management competency becomes so valuable, right? Because it's almost a translation. So right now, so what I've seen is not enough questions are being asked that are probing questions, and not everyone has a chance at any level to stop and wrap your brain around what that status meeting really says. So, and I know that, and I don't want to do for a woman to come in, you sound like a total bitch. Well, what about this? What about that? Well, how about this? Well, did we check for that? Did we this? When a man does it, it's kind of like, yeah, he's really on top of it, right? It's a very different perspective.
I feel like a bitch all the time when I'm saying this. I think they hate me right now.
But I mean, I think that for that compliance group to come in and say, okay, here's what we found, or here's what the risks are. And we've had so many attempts in our industry to do a risk quantification, a dollar quantification, a likelihood quantification. We have all of these sciences behind really how bad is this risk, right? Is really what we're asking. But when you have a kind of a compliance management group, kind of to sandwich that, on one side you have a vulnerability, or you have some sort of a finding that you have, or an observation that you have, and on the other side you have the executive who says, well, I also find this important, and I don't want to accept the risk. Let's fix it. Or here's a check. I'll approve this budget because I also believe this is important enough. Or this is not a high priority for us. Why don't we table this to next year, because now I can make a firm decision understanding what it is I'm making a decision on. And so a lot of times that doesn't happen. It's one-sided. You're forcing information onto someone they clearly just don't understand, and then you're forcing them to make decisions on it. They're not making the right one, and then kind of everybody loses.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think a big part of this, it comes down to not being able to show the parts that are actually important. Like, which parts are really important? Like, sometimes you have to say the right things, but you also got to know what doesn't need to be mentioned,
right?
Or at least to a certain audience. It's like the number 3 works. One, 2, 3 things. People pay attention.
Yep.
It goes down quick. The more you say, because we have one brain, one attention span, and it's like the pizza. If you cut it in more pieces, it's the same thing. They're just getting smaller pieces and can't deal with it as well. So Ross, can you give an example of a time you've seen this sort of disconnect have a real business impact?
Yeah, and I see it really happen every time a leader chooses not to understand and appreciate IT infrastructure and security. Or I think the bigger frustration that happens these days, and I run into this, is when we have a discussion about risk. And the way I do it is I bring them 3 risks every single quarter. So here's what I want you to know. Here's your risk scenarios. I've modeled them based on your business. I've modeled them based on findings, your threats, your vulnerabilities, every other piece of data that we've collected from all the systems that are collecting data. Here's what I think your 3 biggest risks are. And I know what your risk tolerance is. We decided what it was. And so what I try to do is give them essentially 1 or 2 things that they can do if they choose to remediate those risks, and say, all we have to do is say yes. First and foremost, say yes to this one thing and maybe one other thing. And then we're going to meaningfully reduce this risk exposure. Here's how much, doing that CRQ stuff, that cyber risk quantification, here's how much we're going to reduce it. And they go, that sounds amazing. Let's do it. And then we go, okay, just so you know, we're going to talk about this again in 30 days in case no action gets taken. So we're marking this that you want to remediate, but in case no action gets taken, this is why we keep meeting every single month. And the next month comes by and, hey, what's going on? You haven't done anything yet. Your MSP sent you a quote for this. Where are we? Well, there's this and there's that, and there's bureaucratic red tape, and the CEO didn't show up to the meeting, and they don't really want to spend the money right now. Like, okay, maybe the CEO needs to get in here and decide whether or not the CEO wants to accept that risk, because maybe the CEO wants to accept it. Maybe they're just like, I'm good with it. Or can we defer it 2 quarters? But at least then we'll get a meaningful answer. If they don't know, bring the CFO and ask them those questions. And that's one of the hardest things to do. So one of the hardest things to do is to get those decision makers to the plate, get them to understand the stakes, make a decision, and then follow through. Because everybody sits there and nods their head. I post about this on LinkedIn all the time. Everybody sits there and nods their head. Yeah. It's like, okay, where to now? You got to take action, guys, or we're not actually reducing risk.
And they also don't want to make decisions on behalf of someone else, right? Yep. So, and they're very, very leery of that. So case in point, recently, an LOA situation, the question was, if someone goes on LOA, do you want to suspend access altogether or not while they're gone? For salaried employees, this makes a difference because some are coming back after receiving state disability and saying, I'm salaried. I checked every single email every single day. You owe me my back pay. They're actually winning, right? So the question was, what do you guys want to do? So this was literally several week long and should have never been this difficult. Go to the CTO. Hey, would you guys suspend access if HR told you that Karina's out for 6 weeks? Yep. Sure, yeah. Okay, what would you need from them? So you went over to the CHRO. Hey, can you send them a trigger saying Karina's out for 6 weeks because she broke her foot? Well, yeah, but I don't want to give those guys any extra work because, they're really, really busy. Yep. Okay, so you run back to the CTO. Hey, CTO, so CHRO is worried that you're going to be too busy to receive. Is this really okay? Well, let's think about the type of ticket. Okay, so this is literally, I got them in one room.
Yep.
Literally, I ordered, we got some great Mediterranean food. I forgot the name of the place. We literally got them in one room. The decision is made in 3 minutes.
Yep.
It's over. Instead of this 3 week, because neither one of them wanted to demand of or promise on behalf of or make a decision for the other guy.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. And I love remote work, but for God's sake, sometimes you just got to get people in a room. Let's hash this out. Let's come up with a compromise. Let's come up with some decisions that we can action.
Yeah, for sure. No, you, and that's your job too, I think. And it's hard sometimes, especially when you're a fractional CISO or you're one of those third parties. So you fall under all the third party risk management assessments that have to go on that you're pushing for. And then you have to go in there and boss these people around and go, I need you two to talk and you're not doing it. And I realize you don't answer to me, but you're paying me to do this work. So I'm going to make you do it. Otherwise, don't pay me to do the work. Fire me, and then I won't make you do it if that's what you want.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like when a company like one of ours is hired, it can be like, okay, we checked that box. The cybersecurity, it's in progress. And while hiring a company like ours is a good step towards due diligence, it doesn't solve it all. If we offer up recommendations like Ross just said, if you say no every time, we can't be surprised if those risks get realized later on. At the same time, having us there can help in some communications aspects because, like, say the IT manager is scared or just doesn't want to deal with the person who can approve it, or they may think that it's going to look bad on them that it wasn't handled already, then maybe we can get in the middle and get that action to happen because the leaders will know that we are there to tackle these sort of issues. We probably know this stuff well. That's why we're there. It's what we do, like every day, mostly.
Right.
And then we can often get a yes in 10 minutes that an IT manager or whoever couldn't get in months or years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they're afraid for their job. And so they don't want to step on toes. And I'm like, you hired me to step on your toes. I'm going to step all over them. If you don't like it, then don't continue to hire me.
I mean, I think fundamentally a lot of the way our organizations are built in this very pyramid structure, right? The people who work for you are yes men.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they want to tell you what they want to what you want to hear. They're not going to jump up and down in front of you and say warning, warning. They want to make you think that you are amazing, right? That you've done all of the work. So you want to show that fully green status. I mean, you want to show that your team's working hard. We're all very valuable. And I'm being very broad in general, and I don't mean to insult anyone here, but your target when you come into work is to let the boss know that we're good. Right. And so I'm not necessarily saying this is cherry picking, but even for us as middle managers or even senior level managers to kind of think about, well, wait a minute, what could sideswipe me right now? What can go beyond a status report where I'm showing we're good, right? Which is kind of what I'm paid to do. Because what if I say something that we're not good and then I get fired? Well, I don't want to do that because that's my livelihood. Yep. So I'm going to just keep saying we're good, that my boss hired the right person for the job to keep everything in bay and working well. And so I think it kind of is good for all of us to go, let's scratch our head once in a while and go, what am I missing? I mean, this is the original intent of incident response plans. Let's drill through an incident, right? Let's see who does what, and really let's do a DR plan, right? Let's execute against our own published policies and processes that are supposed to be instructional for our people to see how successful we would be should something happen. And most people really deprioritize that. And it's very unfortunate because you get to see people's actual capabilities in situations like that.
Yep. Yeah. Well, those green lights that sit on that report look good until something bad happens. And then that's where the how did we let this happen question comes from. It's like, you've been telling us we're good. Apparently we're not as good as you've been telling us. And then you look 10 times worse. Like, my company's second core value is learning is growing. Our third is proactivity prevents problems. So I want to show progress. I'm not here to give you a bunch of green lights. I'm here to give you the truth, and I'm here to make progress. And as long as I'm giving you the truth and we're making progress, then we are good. That's good. It's when we stop making progress or when I start telling you things to make you feel better that are just completely a lie or versions of the truth. That's when we're not so good. So and I try to tell that to the IT directors I work with as much as I can and go, listen, your job's not in as much jeopardy as you'd like to pretend it is. In fact, they would appreciate some more honesty, because if you want to get them to the table, you're going to have to start doing that.
One of my favorite leaders was one of my favorite mentors said to me one day, it is really, really lonely at the top. Yeah. I don't really know who's telling me the truth or if they're telling me what I want to hear because they want to hold on to their job. So I really would. And so he's the one that kind of introduced this, compliance layer between the executable IT and then the executives, where he's like, just translate this for me. What is really happening? And that was, and if you come across and you kind of approach that situation in an unbiased way, it becomes very, very, hey, here's the real landscape and you can make a decision. Your decision, not mine. Right. You get to live with your decision, right? But if you want to accept it, we move on, right? Yeah. So it needs to be a little bit more sterile, I think, than what it's become.
Yep, for sure.
I think it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting to see green on dashboards all the time, expecting it, being afraid to see red. Yeah. But I think if it's green all the time, you might be missing the important things, or you might not be ambitious enough. Like, say you're an IT team and your metrics allow you to complete a service ticket within 60 days, and you're like, well, we've done that 100% of times. It's like, yeah, because it should have taken a half hour.
Yeah.
You know, you're missing the mark there.
Yeah. That's why I say if everything's green, you've got the wrong KRIs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
But there are some teams that do a good job in this area. Karina, if you think of a time when you've seen a leadership team get this right, can you tell us about them and what made them effective?
Yeah. So I had a client that we had. I always start with the policies and a GRC architecture program design, right? We build out, I whiteboard the whole what to expect. And I sit down with the binder of policies and hey, let's really make this your own. Let's not include templatized control statements, which are auditable, for stuff that you don't actually really do, right? Let's put measurements around them and let's figure out triggers on if controls fail. You know, how do they open that risk registry item and what are we going to do with it? And so they had, they sat with me at the table. They made decisions. They documented their beliefs. They had me run drills. We ran one DR test. It failed miserably. Then I unannounced ran another DR test after giving a whole bunch of feedback and kind of doing more internal training and awareness, right? This is a pharmaceutical environment. So imagine huge, massive freezers the size of buildings that have varying levels of frozen, right? There are actually varying levels of frozen. And one of the freezers contained these vials that had that were chemo meds that were $40,000 a vial, right? So during the first DR test, somebody went in and opened up the door with a power failure. Don't open the door to go in to take inventory, right? I'm like, no, you can't open the door because you're losing the cold air. They've got to stay. And this was a pretty long engagement and it was in the Midwest. And so wrapped the engagement, second DR test went really, really well. Everybody was on top of it. I mean, the controlled substance cage. I mean, the whole thing, it went really, really well. And I leave. I'm in my van and I'm heading out to, like, I'm in Montana somewhere. I forgot, or was Wyoming maybe. I forgot where it was exactly. And all of a sudden these messages start coming into my phone, pictures of the roof being torn off by a tornado. And they didn't lose not one vial. They came up and were completely redundant. We had two semi-truck companies that were refrigerated, one on the north side of town, one on the south side of town, in case of an emergency for transportation, right? The generator. So, I mean, everything worked, but it worked because we practiced. And we practiced because the executive leaders wanted that practice. They wanted to know that that was going to be a safe environment in case of an emergency, in case something happened. And it's not just because they were in the Midwest and there were tornadoes. It could be a powder outage. It could be an earthquake. We had situations here early last year during the LA wildfires, right? Where I had a technician call me and say, what the hell is a frequency? I don't know if my house is on fire. I can't find my kids or my wife. What is a frequent? Can I do this frequency thing frequently next week? Is this like, do I have to do this now before I log off and do my recovery? So when you use words that are ethereal and unfollowable, what's a sometimes? What's a periodically? Right? So you're actually making it harder for your own people to be successful in a bad situation. But all of that starts with executive leadership wanting to get those operations to a level where their people can be successful. None of that would be happening had I not gotten a phone call that says, make it right. We know we've got a bad situation right now. And that's where companies like myself, companies like Mike's companies, Ross's companies, we show up, right?
That word periodically only belongs in a SOC 2 control.
What the hell is a period, right? And I don't even leave it there.
Yeah.
I don't even leave it there. Put weekly. Because look, maybe periodically to you is once a quarter and periodically to Mike is once a year. The auditor shows up and says, well, to me, periodically is every week. You failed.
Yep, exactly.
It's objective.
No interpretation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That paycheck must have felt better though.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you think about it, if you were hiring someone and you says you get paid periodically,
Yeah.
that's not going to work. So we probably shouldn't do it in cybersecurity. You know, it's like
Yep.
a lot of companies do this stuff because of compliance. Okay, I get it. But why avoid the conversation, the risk aspect, the operational usefulness aspect of it? It's like SOC 2 is not going to tell you one way to do it. It has to fit your business. You say what you're going
Yeah.
to do, and then you do it. But Karina, that example you highlighted, it must have been really rewarding to see the real world benefits you were able to bring to that company, because if that would have went wrong, they probably would have lost millions of dollars. Some people would have got sick or died, or maybe tried to have to go somewhere else to get that medication. And even though you were there for things like cybersecurity compliance, you fix their business. Their business had to improve overall. They can't say, okay, well, that's like something the IT person's going to play with. We're not going to really bring this into our business. So you made their business better. So kudos to you, Ross. You've worked with a lot of companies. Do you have a story of a time working with a leadership team that you've seen get this right, and what made them effective?
Yeah, and I do. I don't think it's as cool as Karina's. That was a good story, but I'll tell it anyway. So I'm big into third party risk management. I've spent a lot of time really digging into that, especially in healthcare, where you're required to have a business associate agreement. And healthcare, they think that's what third party risk management is. And even worse, they start working with these vendors that they're sending their sensitive data to. And by the way, I go to so many conferences every year where I'm these are healthcare conferences, like not IT conferences. These are healthcare conferences. And I talk to a lot of these vendors that are taking the healthcare data that you're all handing over to your healthcare providers. I was speaking with the CEO of one back in May, and I was talking about OCR, and I kept using the OCR. He goes, "Let me stop you for a minute. What's OCR?" And I went, okay. This is why I'm here, right? This is why I'm here, because you're a data analytics company. You're literally taking health PHI from these healthcare providers. Anyway, so like you have to assess risk before you start working with these vendors. So I have clients coming to me all the time going, hey, we want to talk to a new vendor, especially with everything going on with AI. We want to use this AI vendor. We want to use that AI vendor. Okay, slow down. Let's see what they do. Let's see do they store, process, or transmit ePHI? All right, let's evaluate them. Let's take them through a third-party risk assessment. And so I said, okay, send me over the BAA that they're asking you to sign. Send me over anything other agreements. So they sent me the BAA. They sent me their terms of service. I went through and I looked at it. I'm not a lawyer, but I run a business and I know what it means to read a contract, because I'm one of those annoying people that actually reads contracts. And people hate it, but I read them. And so I'm looking at the stuff and I'm like, first of all, there's contradictions all over the place. The biggest thing I think you need to be aware of is that this business associate agreement only requires them to notify you 60 days after they've discovered the breach. The breach notification rule says you have to notify Health and Human Services 60 days after after the breach takes place. This is your data. So now you have no time to notify Health and Human Services. You can't sign that. That's garbage. And so I gave them all kinds of stuff. Go back to them, say this to them, say that to them. The funny part was the vendor eventually capitulated to almost everything that I said had to change. And then they decided the vendor was too risky. They didn't want to work with them. And I said, okay, see, this is why we do this. This is why we do this, because you get attracted to this shiny object that you think is going to make your business better. And you don't stop to actually look at what this really means and what the risks are to you. But because I can quantify that for you and I can show you what it looks like. I mean, I have 44 questions I make them answer. My third-party risk management assessment is this online thing where they have to go through 7 different domains and answer 44 questions. And I evaluate them based on each one of those. And I give them an effectiveness score. And I say, here's this vendor's risk effectiveness score. Or security effectiveness score, and this is how we rate them. Is they have moderate risk, they have high risk, they have low risk? What is it? And so we can make good decisions around it. And once we have that process in place, it changes the whole ballgame. So the success story is just that I'm getting this healthcare provider now to turn their back on vendors that are going to play fast and loose with their patient data.
Good, great. And we also have a questionnaire, and we also do ranking and grading for some of our clients with their vendors. And a lot of times I tell people, if you want to work with a vendor, ask them, do you really need that data?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they're doing something different, some other sort of service or process or product that doesn't require all of that sensitive data, because you never know where it's stored, and it's probably not Taj Mahal, right? It's probably some cheap corner of a colo location storage area that doesn't have all of those controls that you think they should. And most people think, I work with a team, they want to do the right thing just like I do. It's just a fallacy, because that's what we rely on. And it's not. And we did an analysis recently. We had a client who wanted to use AI for HIPAA, and we literally assessed. And it was a medical record kind of screening, summarization kind of functionality. And somebody on our team, we had them do a full assessment on these HIPAA AI tools. You start going into the fine print, it's not there, right? On a lot of different counts. And I mean, I'm all for innovation and technology, and let's go team, and let's make it easier for us to do our job. But don't call yourself a HIPAA AI company unless you can really prove it. We found like 2 companies, and out of a starting number of 35, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and none of these people buying these services even know. Like, none of them know. They get completely attracted to the shiny object, and then they make a decision about it, and they have no idea what they're signing up for.
Yeah, it's true.
Bob Miller, who was our guest last month, he had a cool comment. He said, I choose to interpret periodically as my opportunity to define what that term is for my organization. So please use the word, but it's my word after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So next question, Ross. So businesses want to grow fast. That's probably why they were created in a lot of cases. How can growing businesses move fast without leaving cybersecurity and compliance behind?
Yeah. I move fast. I move really fast. My head of technology said to me this morning, he goes, it's all going so fast. And I said, yeah, I move fast. Speed's not what breaks security. It's variation that breaks security. So you're going out and you're acquiring new businesses. And I see this happen a lot. There's a lot of M&A in healthcare. You're adding on new vendors all the time. You're literally letting people register applications in your Microsoft 365 environment. This stuff's going on like crazy. You're going to have to prioritize something, focus in one specific area. So build that standard once and then clone it. Take decisions that are easily reversible and make them quickly. Take decisions that are irreversible or really hard to reverse and make them slowly. And focus on the areas that are the most important to you. If M&A is your big thing, then you better have a process to vet those incoming organizations, because you're going to have to get rid of all the periodically and make it follow your specific mold. And you're going to have to do that quickly, because it's when you ignore that and you allow that variation to exist, that's where the risk comes from. So you can grow fast and still do it securely. You just have to know how to prioritize.
And even if there's an M&A, or even if there's a vendor involved, and even if there's some sort of process as part of your daily operations, standardize a set of risk-based questions that you just use all the time and consistently get measurements. You can find them everywhere. You can call one of us, right? And like, my job is private equity and I lend money out. Okay, great. How are you doing an assessment from the security perspective and the capabilities from the technology perspective on these companies you're lending money to? Many of them don't at all, right? So here's 10 questions. Just ask these every single time. Yeah. And then once you start asking them repetitively, you start kind of getting into this groove of, well, this, question number 4, now there's an A and a B to that, and maybe it'll grow to a C. And so now you can actually start building out some of the criteria, because you may not know you have criteria for gauging risk until you actually start asking the questions. And when they answer you, you may be like, I don't know that I'm okay with that, right? And that will now all of a sudden grow even more.
Yep, exactly.
Having worked with like portfolio companies, I absolutely love those because sometimes, well, you don't know what they have. If you're just joining them. Sometimes they don't know what they have.
Yeah.
And then when you help them figure out what they have, and then you're working with them, and then they talk about this new cool thing they want to acquire, and how to bring that on board, how to check it. That's a really exciting aspect of cybersecurity. So Karina, as far as businesses that want to grow fast, what tip would you have about this one? How to do that without leaving cybersecurity and compliance behind?
You have to start with cybersecurity and compliance. I mean, everything else will build on top of that, right? So your GRC program will actually build on good practices for your internal controls, your perimeter security controls, right? So when you have those good practices in place, and take a target, take a NIST, you don't have to adhere to every single control in the beginning, right? Sit down, prioritize them, and say, okay, this we can do, this we do right now, this somebody else does, but here's how our relationship is connected. I would actually start with GRC and then scale that out, because there are going to be some things that are basic, that are necessary for running the business. They're going to be good, they're going to be in place, they're going to be solid, they're going to be repetitive, and now you can scale out everything else on top of that. And vendor management, I would say, is probably one of the most important aspects to that, because you're going to be working with vendors as part of growing your company, and you need to know what to look out for as you're working with them. And please, for God's sakes, keep those inventory lists in place, including the APIs that you have, right? And refresh them frequently. And I used this example last month, but we had a client, we came in, they turned on this API 8 years ago. The contract was for 5 years. The contract has since lapsed. The API is still siphoning out SPI. The guy who set up the API, he's gone. Nobody knows the password. I mean, it's absurd that people just don't know where their data is going. And it's just, those are one of the basic principles. Map your data as you're wanting to grow your company and know exactly where it goes.
And they're going to ask you, you get into one of those situations, you get into a situation with the OCR, they're going to say, show me your asset list and where EPHI lives. I need to see that. I need to understand every asset that stores, processes, or transmits EPHI. Do you tag any of those things? No. I don't know everything. Oh, we're in the cloud. Our EHR handles that. No,
right?
No, man. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you believe that. I'm sorry that somebody sold you on that lie. It's just not true.
Right.
It's funny, like when you go to a company and you say, let me see your hardware software list, it could sound like, oh, this is a compliance thing. But then when they come back to you and they say, all right, we'll put it together, can you give us 2 weeks? It's like, oh, so see, you don't know what you have. You just answer the question for me, but yes, we'll talk to you in 13 days. Let's do 13 days instead of 14.
Yeah. No, but, yes, I can show you. It's right here. Let's log in and I will hand it to you.
And live and current and updated, right? Yep. I mean, and this is maybe where a discovery tool, I'm very tool agnostic in general, because I love all tools. And so I never want to like use this one versus that one. But it's got to be used in the right way, and it has to be real time. It has to be active, and it has to be sitting on top of a very well-defined data classification policy where you don't need to encrypt publicly available data, folks. I'm going to say it again. Do not encrypt publicly available data. Get rid of your publicly available data, because you're increasing your own footprint. You're making it less secure for yourself. It's just more of a threat.
Yep. Just like you don't need to sign a BAA with a company that doesn't have access to EPHI.
Right.
And please don't sign them. They're not necessary.
And then refresh your BAAs too, because I personally have read BAAs where the opening statement says one thing and a closing statement will say something completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, because probably the age of the attorneys came in and just added a paragraph here and there, and then nobody did the full read through top to bottom. It's very concerning.
So Ross, if a leadership team was going to change one thing today, what should it be?
Yeah. I talked about this before. I think you have to start the discussion and you have to be consistent about it, which is, of course, the hardest thing for everybody to do, right? They're going to start and then they don't stay consistent, or they start, they stay consistent, and then they don't make taking action a hard rule. And so then it dies there because it ends up dying somewhere on the vine. So you've got to start the discussion, you've got to make the discussion consistent, and you've got to make taking action a hard rule that is non-negotiable. It's the only way to start to reduce that risk. And I hear people all the time, because I go out and I pitch this and I talk to people about what they're doing, and they're coming to me and they're saying, I'm worried about AI and I'm worried about making sure that I'm doing it properly. And then I show them what it's going to cost to engage with my team and there's always some apprehension there, because it's like, whoa, we didn't know that was going to, well, did you think we were doing this for free? Did you think that the 20 plus years that we have building systems and programs and information, the vast networks of people that we talk to every single day and get information from, you think we just give that information away? I mean, we give a lot of it away. Don't get me wrong. I'm posting out on LinkedIn about it all the time. But there's this myth that we can do it alone, and you can, but I'm telling you, it costs 4 times as much. It costs 4 times as much because you cannot do it at the speed I can do it. You don't have the systems and processes that I have. You don't have the knowledge and experience and connections that I have. This is a much faster, cheaper way to do it, where I'm going to make you take ownership and you can continue to focus on what you actually want to focus your time and attention on. And I tell them, they go, how much time is this actually going to take? And I go, it's going to take 12 hours a year from the CEO. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. 12 hours in a year, in 365 days, 12 hours. What it's going to take from the IT director, the initial lift is bigger. It's bigger. That's going to take more time. But ongoing, we talk once a week maybe. Like, we're doing the work. We're doing the work, and we've got the systems to show you the data. You just now get to know what it is. You know where all that information is. You're defensible. It's one of the biggest things you have. You've got that defensibility, and with that defensibility comes your peace of mind. It comes your ability to stop focusing on all the things that are taking you away from your goals and start focusing on the things that are getting you closer to them. Isn't that what you want?
Well, if they're working with a company like yours, they're going to have someone that has the experience. You're going to probably bring a much more unbiased perspective than their teams that are in it every day. And plus, when you're doing it, it frees up their team to focus on the things they got hired for. Like, if you're a software developer, okay, great, Ross will handle the cybersecurity. You do your software development. It's gonna get a better product, probably faster, and it's kind of a win-win. So, Karina, what would you add for this one? If a leadership team can change one thing today, what should it be?
I would have them reject the all green status. I would advise that they say, what's going wrong? Where are risk areas? What do I need to know about? If you can pose those questions in a more pointed way, that just makes for a better conversation, not in a demeaning or threatening way, just, hey, what else should we be looking out for? The beauty of Mike or Karina or Ross to come in is, or their teams, not just individuals, because I've got an incredibly wonderful, capable team as well who do a lot of this, is you can't see the forest for the trees a lot of times because you're so close to it. Like, I can probably tinker in my engine, but I want to bring my car to a mechanic.
Yep.
I mean, could I? I guess I could watch YouTubes and read the manuals and talk to people and see what kind of experience they had fixing a Subaru, right? I could probably figure it out. I guess I'm smart enough to do that. But do I want to? I want to take my car to somebody that knows what they're doing. They have the diagnostics. They've seen it before, right? And this is kind of the same in this space for a lot of companies who are just on autopilot. They know their job. They got into it because they're good at their job. They know the triggers. They know what makes them hum. They may have the best cybersecurity guy in the world on staff or several. What happens when they win the lottery and they never come back? Right? So, I mean, you've got to figure out how to take the advice of people who've seen this from that centralized level and can really make an impact to your entire organization, and not just external parties like auditors or, forensics, God forbid, or you've called a 3 or 4 letter agency, but even just your internal everyday operational kind of successes. You want to be aware of really what is in your environment and how are you handling that, probably better than where you're at right now. And I know it's a hard ask for a lot of people who are in executive positions because they have so much to deal with, but they also need to make the decision to continue to ask those probing questions.
Yep, that's ownership.
That's ownership. That's right.
Well, my take, since the question says change one thing today, I would say get clarity from a business perspective, not just, the systems don't have multi-factor authentication and they should. What are the ramifications of that? How much does it cost? And that one thing is enough, because once you realize that it has serious ramifications, the business instinct will kick in and they'll probably do something about it.
Yeah, clarity is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But Ross, that's our final question. We sincerely appreciate you joining us today. Do you have any closing remarks? Oh, of course. Do you have any closing remarks for the audience, and where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, right here on LinkedIn, I post every day of the week with all kinds of fun memes about governance and decision making and ownership and pretty much everything I've talked about today. My posts are kind of serious, but my memes are always fun. So, come for the memes, come for the posts, come for both. Doesn't matter. But yeah, connect with me. I love having these conversations with folks out there. And I just want to keep pushing that mindset. I think there's a lot of work that we have to do here as a community to change it in the minds of these business owners and leaders.
Yeah, Ross's content's been really interesting. You've been getting a lot of engagement for the right reasons. I saw some posts upwards of like 1,000 likes and all that stuff, which is hard for cybersecurity. It's not like posting a cute selfie, which maybe you do sometimes too, and getting a bunch of likes.
Nobody wants to see my selfies.
You never know. You got to work it into the rotation a little bit.
Yeah.
But Karina, do you have any closing remarks, and where can the audience find you?
So they can find me in Vegas in a few weeks. So please reach out if you're going to be out that way. Would love to catch up and chat. I'm not on LinkedIn lately as much as I should be, but please write a message if you need to. Closing remark is please lower your digital footprint and stop posting pictures and videos of your kids online. We're creating a digital identity for them that they have not opted into. Let them make that decision themselves later on. So virgin social security numbers are a real thing, right? And identity theft is a real thing for young kids because they're the best victims because nobody checks those social security numbers. So just watch your geofences on your social media posts and just keep our kids safe and aware of some of the dangers of social media, I would say. That's my closing remark.
Yeah, that's quite meaningful. And it's a pleasure to collaborate with you, Karina, like always. To the audience, thanks so much for joining us today. We know you have a lot of other things going on. Next Monday or Tuesday, we're going to be making the announcement for next month's event, August. It's going to be a good one, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.